Hello, here it is, as promised, your tutorial for putting your rosettes together. So here we have the rosette pack. Now I'll just go through it step by step because I don't want to confuse you, because it really is very simple to put together. So as we're going to start off with the pleats, you'll need 4 of each of these, and this is your larger pleat and this is your inner pleat. So we just want to cut each of those 4 times. And then step by step, we'll go back to the pack and we'll talk about each piece as we go. Okay, now to fold these, we'll start with the larger pleat and we'll put them in pairs. Okay, now for this first pair, we're going to start with a mountain fold. Now you're working along these perforated lines. So we'll start with 1 mountain fold, then we'll do 2 valley folds, 2 mountains, 2 valleys, 2 mountains, 2 valleys, right the way along. So we're just creasing it at this point. We're kind of coaxing the card into the shape we want it to be, and then we'll go along and we'll pleat it afterwards. So we're still on this first pair, so we start with a mountain fold and then 2 valleys, 2 mountains, 2 valleys, and so on. Okay, so it doesn't take long. We're just getting the paper used to going in that way before we completely fold it. Okay, so the second pair, we start with a valley fold, and then it's straight into 2 mountains and 2 valleys, 2 mountains, and so on. Now remember, you can use different materials. You can, my inspiration team did some marvellous samples, and again we're starting with a valley fold and then 2 mountains. They use vellum, lace, lots of different materials, and I actually found that using foamer, you know, that really thin foam, was absolutely great, because once you've I mean, you have to fold one piece at a time and staple it, so it's a little bit slower putting together, but once you put it together, it's completely flexible. It can open straight out, or it can curl right up into a complete spiral, so you can make those pleated flowers, or you can put it in rows across your card, different colors, you know, these, you know, multicolored ruffles. You can do all sorts with it. It's great. Okay, so now we've given these a little bit of a gentle bend, we're now going to properly fold them. So you'll see that it all just falls into place into this box pleat that you kind of recognize seeing on a rosette. And if you look at it towards the end, that's the effect. I'm trying to get it in good view in the camera here. You'll see that's the effect that you're going for. So if you've got that, then you've done it right. Okay, so now what I'll do with the other ring, I'll speed up the camera a little bit so you haven't got to, you know, see it in full time. But I know what it's like when you're making something for the first time. Even though you think you know what you're doing, it's nice to see it, isn't it? And the reason that I wanted to do a video for these was, if I put it in writing, I think it was going to sound a lot more complicated than it really is. And I think once you sit down and start to put these together, I think it's kind of, they fall into place. If you make any mistakes in the first one, I think after that you'd be well away. And after all, it's only a bit of card, isn't it? Okay, so we've got our 2 pairs like that, and 2 of them start with the leading piece at the top, and 2 of them are underneath. So when you glue them together, they link together nicely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to glue these. So I'll pop a little bit of glue on there. You don't need too much, because we will be stapling them together. So I just put a little bit of pressure on, just for a minute. Okay. And you'll see, by the time you put all 4 pieces together, it will have formed a circle. I'll just pinch them together for a few seconds. That's all it needs. There we go. This glue is actually a little bit on the sticky side, which is actually ideal because it grabs quicker. Okay, then our last one. And also, it's worth mentioning that you can make these out of paper, out of... oh, actually, one of my inspiration team, Claire, she did an awesome one where she was using crepe paper, layers of crepe paper. So if you wanted to use something more delicate, you can just up your layers. If you wanted to use tissue or crepe or something like that. Okay, so just to remind you, with the second one, before I speed it up, you're starting 2 off with a mountain and then into the valleys, and then 2 off with a valley and then into the mountains. Okay, I'll carry on doing those. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we've got our 2 circles, our 2 pleated circles done. I'll just set that one aside to dry for a moment. And we're going to start with the outer ring. Now, it doesn't matter where you start or finish because it's going to be exactly the same all the way around. So what you want to do is you want to bring the bottom of each pleat together, and you want to put a staple right near the bottom. And the next one. Now, you want to be using a small stapler. And what I mean by a small stapler is you want it to be narrow across here. So you want the size of your staple to be narrow. I tried with a wider one, and it didn't really allow for it to spread like that, like you kind of need it to when you make the rosette. So if you've got a tiny attacher, that'll be absolutely perfect. This one is the next size up. It's made by the company that I think make the tiny attacher, that's called Rapesco. What size is this one? It says it's 10/4 mil. So that's the size I'm using, and I've had, you know, great results with that. I got it from Amazon. So you want to make your way around, and you want to keep your staples quite close to the base, and keep them in a neat row. Okay, so I'm going to carry on stapling away, and I'll see you again in a moment. Okay, so that's both the rings done. They look like little cupcake holders at this point, don't they? Okay, so that's those done. Now we need to, I think maybe it'd be best at this point if I tell you the other pieces that you need to cut out. Okay, so what we're going to need now is the piece we're going to glue that down on. That's going to be this backing piece. So this is the larger circle. That's the smaller plain circle. We want to cut the larger plain circle with this perforated line. So that's the piece we're going to need to cut out for gluing our circles down onto. Then we want to cut our larger circle again, but you either want to cut it plain or you want to cut it with one of these pieces in, and I can actually show you these. So if you cut the backing piece with your perforated line, that's what you get. So if you can see that. Now, don't worry if it's not completely central on that, because it's just a guide to make sure that we get our rosette nice and round. So that's all it is a guide. There's nothing important there. But on the back, we want to kind of cover that over, cover those perforated lines and give it a nice, neat finish. So that's where we want to cut a second one, either blank to cap it off, or we're popping the little two holes in. Now these are sized for medium safety pins and large safety pins, because a small safety pin I think is just going to be a little bit too small, because the rosettes are, you know, they're quite a statement piece. So those are your two backing pieces. Okay, now I'll go into the front in a moment, but also what we're going to cut as well is we're going to cut our tails. So you've got large tail and you've got a narrow tail. Now you've also got this decorative piece. Now it's up to you if you want to put that in. That's an option. It looks really good, because what it does is it gives you holes that you can see the backing layer through the top layer. So that's quite nice, especially if it's a real celebration. So you want two of each of those, so you want to cut those twice. Okay, and we'll go on to the centers in a moment. I'll staple my tails while we're talking about the tails. So what you want to do is you want to line them up at the top so they're flush at the top here. And you want to make it central. So you've got a border of that backing piece all the way around those three edges. Now you want to staple it right near the top, because you want to get as much length on the tail as you can. Okay, and again, you want it flush with the top, with an even border down both sides. Staple it at the top. Now, you want to cross them over, but you want to keep it so they're kind of like swiveled on the spot, if you know what I mean. So if you put them together, and then you swivel the tops, and then I do it just so there's a tiny gap between the 2 points at the bottom here. And then I put two staples in right next to each other at the top. Now you want two there so it doesn't swivel more. Okay, now that's held nice and firm. Right, so we want to bring in our backing piece with the perforation around it. Now this is where our glue goes. So we want to pop our glue, and you can do the whole ring at once, because you do have just enough time, if you work fairly quickly, to get the whole ring down. So you want to work out what colour you want on top, if it's double-sided, then pop it in the middle and then flare it out. Now what you want to do now, while the glue is still hot, is ease it out. And you want to just be able to see those perforations. So you're easing it, you're just making sure that you're keeping it circular. That's all we're doing. It's just, you don't want it going oval. So if you can just see that perforated line just in line with the edge of your paper. It is a little bit tricky to see if you've got a lot of glue there, I'll be honest. But you just want to make sure that you're you've got a circle going on. There, it's set now, so that's looking good. Okay, now for my second one, again, I want my desired colour on the inside. This time, I'm going to lay my glue down right over where my staples are. And just inside, you don't want to go too far outside. Okay, so I want to pop that down and then again fan it out. But what we're doing this time is we're coaxing it to be in line, oops, with the paper underneath, with the edge of the pleat underneath. And you do have to act pretty fast, but you've got enough time, I think, to ease it around. To be honest, it's more difficult on camera not being able to put my head over it, but I don't think... And I've got a little trick actually. If you find that you get a bit that's looking a little bit out of shape, then you, like say if this was, I wasn't happy, I thought this was dipping down a bit here, and I'll always do this when I'm putting my tail in. I'm just gonna bend that tail up a little bit. Is I will look for anywhere that's looking a little bit out of shape, if it's looking a little bit oval, and I will actually hide that area with my tail so you won't know. Okay, so that's the next bit to go in. Like I said, you want to put your thumb just underneath the staples and bend it upwards, and then you want to smooth it over a little bit just so when it comes out it can go over the pleats. Okay, so we'll pop a little bit of glue there. And I think that's the... So we're going to push it now so that the staples kind of go down. We don't want to be able to see the ends of our tails, like when the front goes on. So we're pushing the staples down in towards, you know, that ring there to get the maximum length on our tails. Okay, now at this point, don't worry if you're like me, look, and you've got lots of hot melt showing up everywhere and staples, and you think, oh my gosh, this is looking a little bit messy. That's how it's supposed to be, believe me. Okay. Right, we'll put our back and our safety pin on last. Now the next bit, we'll talk through the fronts. Okay. Now, so far, we've only dealt with the larger circle because that's the back, the large circle and the perforation, because those are the back pieces. Now we're moving on to the fronts. Now the front, you've got the plain circle here. That's your front piece. Now, you've got options because in the medal set, you've got these two decorative circles that are exactly the same size, which is deliberate. So this is the way I designed it, so this could mix and match as a set. So if you don't want to use these radiating designs in the middle of your medals, if you're personalizing them or something and you think this is a bit distracting, use the plain one. That's what it's there for. So when you're using your rosettes and the medals, you've got 3 different front options to go for. Now, of course, once you've cut your front, now I've cut mine in an ivory color because the back on this pattern paper, and you'll find this with a lot of them, it's not white, it's actually off-white, so it's kind of like an ivory color. So I found that match quite well. So I cut that from my small circle, and then I've cut a couple of extra ones just from scrap white card because I want to strengthen that and make it like I don't know if you've ever handled a rosette, but the front is like a real board. It's like a hard board. So that will make up my front, and I'll stick that together in a moment. Now this is for a girl's birthday, so I've picked my sentiment birthday girl. Now that is from the award set. So you get 6 options here. Now 3 of them are towards birthdays. It's birthday girl, birthday boy, and it's my birthday. And then you've got 3 generic ones. So number 1, best ever, and world's greatest. So that could be anyone in your life. They could be your world's greatest, I don't know, babysitter or teacher, you know, the best ever auntie, whatever it is. So you've got those 3 there. Or if it's for a competition, or if it's actually like everybody was saying, if it's a baby, it could be first, second, or third birthday or Christmas or whatever. But obviously, if it's a competition, positioning first, second, and third, then you've also got winner, champion, and then obviously the reserve would make reserve champion. So you've got quite a few options. And then the other option is, if you've got the Linkums, you can personalise your own. I did a couple. I did new baby. Can't remember what I put in the other one. But yeah, I did a couple of baby ones, which were small words. So if you've got small words, you can fit them in with the Linkums. Of course, if you want to stamp, you could stamp and heat emboss, or use your family words. If you got the family mix-ums that were on the show at the same time, you could pop those in the middle. So there's lots of options there. I'm always trying to make sure when I design things that I can design in or add in as many options as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to glue these . Okay, so I've glued those together, and now I'm going to put my sentiment on the front. Now you'll see that this is very delicate. I do sometimes do the trick where I put the glue on the back of my hand and kind of dab it on, or I'll put it on another surface. But this is so fine that I still find that some of the glue oozes out. So what I do on delicate surfaces like this is I put some double-sided sticky tape on the back. Now I know obviously that does add expense, but if you're only doing it to these very delicate pieces, then a roll will last you quite a long time. And there's a few different companies that sell the sticky rolls now. But you can certainly get it on Hochanda. So it all becomes like a sticker, so there's no mess. And the great thing is, if you're using these fronts as the fronts to go on like aperture windows, then there's no mess on the acetate. Because obviously acetate being non-porous, the glue just glides on it, it just oozes out everywhere. But this is great. Okay, so that's the front done, and it's nice and thick because we added those extra layers from some scrap paper, because when we add it onto our front, we want it to stand nice and proud. We don't want to push down and it to bow or anything like that. Okay, so I am going to put some double-sided sticky pads on here now. Okay, let's try 2. Is that touching? No, that's not actually touching. So I need to add a third one. And I'll try it again. Yeah, that's touching now, so that's fine. Now I did find with some of these that they were actually letting go after a while. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on there. Actually, I should have done normal wet glue on there because I want to line that up. I want to get it so it's in line with my tail. think that's okay. Right, now we're going to do our back. So I need a pin, and I need to make sure that it's going to be big enough. So let's check this size. Yep, that's big enough. Does that pink go? Yeah, I think it does. Let's have a pink one. Okay, so we're going to start from the back. You want to put your prong in, put it all the way through, back through the other hole, through again, and there it is in place. And you can do it up. So the pin has to be on the outside. Let me do that again, because I understand that someone was having trouble with this. So it goes all the way through. So you're looking at your back, and you can tell which is your back by the edge because it's kind of curved over slightly. So you're starting from your back, you're putting your prong of your pin through, right the way through, and then you want to ease it into the other hole, right through again, and there it is. So your pin's on the outside. All right, we're going to close that up. Okay. I just want to make sure that's in the right place so it hangs straight when it's worn. Yep, so that's looking great. Okay, the hot melt won't take long before it's set. And then remember how messy it was looking on the inside earlier on? Okay, I'm sure that's set. There, it's all neat, tidy, no mess. There, it's ready to pop on a card, on a home decor project, you know, in a picture frame. It's ready to go. There you are.